This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Corey just returned from a 5-night cruise out of Port Miami to Carnival's RelaxAway Celebration Cay. He joins us on the line. Hey, Corey.
Good to be with you, and good to have met you there on the Sunrise.
Yeah, a nice little chat there at the Alchemy Bar, one of my favorite venues on Carnival Cruise Line ships there. I want to take a step back, though. Give me some pre-cruise thoughts. You're in the Indianapolis area?
Yeah, so originally Massachusetts, but lived in Indiana. I was meeting my aunt and uncle and my mother for a 7-day on Regal Princess, and was getting off of it on May 30. And my girlfriend and I work in education, and she had a few weeks off prior to her summer start in June. So I was looking for a cruise that we could take. She had never been on one the day that the Regal Princess got back to Fort Lauderdale. So I was looking for Fort Lauderdale, Port Miami, and then saw that even though I hadn't sailed with Carnival since 2022, that I had a handful of casino offers that were actually pretty good, for someone who's a penny slot player, low bankroll. But this was what was called a toast to savings offer. So it included, port fees and taxes, but no fare for an interior room, and drinks on us everywhere, reduced, like massage packages, photo packages, and 60% off shore excursions. So we jumped on this 5-day.
How do you get the casino offers? Do you log into a portal, or do they just come to you via email?
Sort of both. So I check, and really it will vary, Doug, even within one work week, what is given and what's taken away. They're mostly on shorter sailings. You might know that now Carnival does what's called sea sailings, sailing exclusively for adults that are more longer itineraries, really 8 to up to 14 days. But yeah, they're all sort of loaded right in there under my offers on your Carnival portal.
All right. So this is an interesting itinerary you did here, or actually, I guess we'll call it cruise experience, because you jumped off Regal, went straight to Carnival Sunrise. So let's talk about your embarkation once you got onto the ship itself. Like, how long did it take you once you arrived at the terminal from the curb to the ship, and what time did you get there?
Yeah, it was easy. So it was actually a pretty painless Uber from a hotel in Fort Lauderdale to Miami. Took about 45 minutes in transit. And then from curb to ship, we were on by about noon, and maybe got there at 11:35, 11:40. So there were about 3,800 folks on the Sunrise that week. Was not congested or crowded at all to get on. A lot of the cruise lines sort of mimic the same flow now of the sensation of just keeping people moving, even though you're doing different things at different junctures. And Carnival and the Sunrise delivered is about 20 minutes total.
Yeah, I was surprised. I left the hotel downtown Miami around 1:30. I got there around 1:45, and it was 16 minutes from 1:45 until 2:01 when I crossed the gangway there. Yeah. And I think that might be a record for Port Miami for me.
Yeah, I was pleased. It was awesome.
Yeah. So you make your way on board Carnival Sunrise. You mentioned this was your first Carnival cruise since 2022. I'm just curious, did you just find other sailings? Did something put you off? Like, why did you wait 4 years?
The last sailing that we were on was a family one on the Magic out of New York in midsummer. And it wasn't great for a number of reasons. A little bit touch and go with the crowd. There were some issues with tendering actually at the formerly regular away at Half Moon Cay. The food wasn't great. The staff sort of seemed overwhelmed. So it wasn't a total disaster, but it wasn't a real win. So after that, I did a couple of celebrities and back to Norwegian, but Carnival is how I came to cruising, and so I still have a sort of a significant soft spot for the brand. So I was pumped to try it again. And initial impressions were really positive. So funny enough, I was on the Triumph, which is version 1.0 of the Sunrise. I think it was refitted about a decade ago. So I'd been on the Triumph for a Canada-New England cruise out of New York, and I was young enough really not to remember a lot of it. But, initial impressions were positive. It is one of those smaller, older Carnival ships, but pretty sort of simple interior, clean looking, golds, pretty simple, classic Carnival cruise vibe. Also, sort of interesting to note, Doug, I looked. I didn't know that this was the Half Moon Cay rededication, grand reopening situation. And so John Heald was on it, and many others of the Carnival beards, as John Heald says. But there were over 1,000 people on this sailing that were Carnival Blue Cards. So a lot of new to Carnival folks or new to cruising folks on the ship. So, day one, of course, everyone, whether you sailed before or not, just sort of bouncing off each other, trying to figure out where to eat, where to go. So a little bit hectic on the first few hours on board. And then, of course, the sail away party, you might remember, was inside because of, the wet weather outside and wanting to be cautious with partying out on the deck. So, generally positive first impressions, just, maybe a little bit congested fun, I guess I would call it, in the first 6 or 8 hours on the ship.
You make your way to your stateroom. What kind of stateroom did you book for this 5-night? And what did you think of it? I mean, the ship was refurbished in 2019. And like you said, it was, it's about probably 25, 26 years old at this point. So I'm curious, in your opinion, did the refurbish do the rooms justice? Did they feel dated at all? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the first impression was how large the passenger hallways are. So being on a lot of newer ships, even ships built within the last decade, they really are accounting for every square foot of space. And so they're reducing the size of these passenger thoroughfares. But the ones on the Sunrise, you could see from bow to stern, at least on the 7th deck where I was. So we had a deck interior room. We did pick the room. It wasn't a guarantee. So I looked above, below, and on the sides to make sure it would be relatively quiet and middle from my girlfriend, again, who had never sailed before. And one of the things I've always loved about Carnival, especially with their older ships, your standard rooms are sizable. Your standard rooms they're not tiny. And neither was this. It had all the comforts of a ship that had a room refit within the last, say, half a decade, 8 years. So USB chargers by the bed, plenty of storage, a larger, maybe 40-inch or so flat screen TV. And then a bathroom, not to make this a complete comparison, a bathroom that was probably 30% bigger than the Regal Princess bathroom. Mm-hmm. So plenty of room, good shower pressure, hot water, very clean, showing its age in some ways, but nothing at all that was problematic or distracting from having a good time. Never met our room steward, but he was awesome. Had everything we need, totally sufficient for a 5-day Bahama getaway.
Yeah, I was impressed with the water pressure. I was kind of expecting it to be kind of lackluster considering the age of the ship and the piping and stuff. But like you could almost pressure wash with the pressure that was coming out. And boy, that water got hot too.
Yeah, I would look forward to the shower. Sometimes on vacation or ships, it's like, all right, we'll just get in and out quickly. But yeah, they were relaxing. It added to it. And our stateroom was very nice, very cozy. One note, interestingly, I don't know if you caught this. There are these vents on the doors. That the doors they did strike me as a little bit thin compared to other cruise line doors. And there are vents at the bottom of them, sort of just below knee length, just below knee height, that did maybe let in a little more sound than you would have if the vent wasn't there. So, we weren't awoken to any problems or shenanigans or really anything in the hallway, but people just being normally loud traveled in the room in a way that if you were in a room without a vent, you might not have heard it.
Let's talk about the food on Carnival Sunrise. So we'll go up to the Lido Marketplace. What did you think of the food served in there? And did it ever feel too crowded during your sailing?
So it would only be from what I saw, because I never did any eating in the buffet. Generally not a huge buffet guy. The buffet lines, there were two. It basically formed a V going from the forward to the aft of the ship. Again, the primary buffet area is on the ninth floor in the aft, just forward of the Tides pool and Tides bar. It was very small. At the same time, though, Carnival, which is another major win for the brand, does a lot to spread out with the fast casual included food. So as much as I didn't try it, it didn't seem like it was incredibly rammed. And the food at first glance, looked fine. Didn't look particularly appetizing or odd or problematic at all. But there were so many other options that we just snuck away from eating at the buffet. In the buffet complex, they also have that Carnival sort of made-to-order takeaway sandwich place and an Asian station where you can order bowls with noodles or rice and a protein. So saw some people chowing down at those. We didn't try either. But those were just my visual observations of the buffet on Sunrise.
Did you hit up the new bagel place in the back?
Yeah, so Bagels at Sea's a win. I know John Heald came out with something just a couple days ago that the line did about sort of a steady rollout of Bagels at Sea on all Carnival ships. So Bagels at Sea was our morning entree prior to Half Moon. Awesome. I don't think people knew about it. And my sort of tips for first-time Sunrise cruisers, it really is to spread out in the morning and at lunch because there are these other fast casual installations. Bagel at Sea was one. We had a really good bagel sandwich with a chive cream cheese spread, and it was a totally sufficient and delightful way to start the day.
Just to expand on your buffet thoughts, I couldn't eat in the buffet any time during the sailing because it was so packed. You were having to shimmy through. Some mornings it was just like miserable, almost like being at a pit in a concert. So I would always find my way to the back of the ship where the bagels and the omelet station are, because I will say, no matter how crowded it was in the buffet, the Lido Deck Marketplace, whatever they call it, the bagels were a home run for sure.
It is, and again, that's right across from the Seafood Shack, which is paid for lunch and dinner, but in the mornings, it's another omelet station.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see anyone there, right? Like there were crew just sort of standing around ready to make you an omelet and nobody was there. You also might not know that at Cucina, the Italian joint, in the morning, there's sort of a semi-breakfast buffet above the craziness of the buffet. So there are options to spread out. So I never, like you, found it a need to eat in the buffet.
Let's talk about the main dining room. What time dining did you have, and what did you think of it?
So again, interestingly enough, this was the first cruise that I can remember where we did not eat in the main dining room. So we did a lot of specialty. Happy to dive into that if you'd like. But save for the last night where we went to the main dining room, found that we were actually at a shared table, which I thought was a little bit odd for two folks to be placed at a shared table. But again, maybe smaller ship, what have you. And then we decided to shuffle out of there the last night to grab some pizza and just to sort of keep it casual. But yeah, no main dining room. We did a lot of specialty.
I will say, so I did, just to jump in here, I did 2 nights in the main dining room. The first night was embarkation night. I did in there, and the food was definitely a miss. I ordered from Emerald's menu. It's the barbecue salmon, and the salmon came out. It was just like a glob of barbecue on kind of an undercooked salmon. And I love seafood, and I love Emerald's, all of his sides on all of his menus for all the nights there. But that was just, that was a miss for me. And then the warm chocolate melting cake came out, and I get that maybe once a year or so. And it wasn't warm. It was kind of not even
sort of melting cake. Yeah,
kind of. Yeah. So I was just like, okay, this isn't good. So then the last night that I was on board, which was the night before Celebration Key, I went back and they did redeem themselves. I mean, the service was impeccable the entire time. Like they couldn't have been more accommodating. And he was even like, why didn't you like this? I'm like, it just was a miss for me. And he's like, let me get you something else. I'm like, I'm good. Thank you though. But then the last time I had steak, and it was spot on, and everyone at my table had an amazing meal. And so maybe it was an off night, I don't know, but that was my experience in the main dining room. But this interview is about you, and we're going to talk about your specialty. So give me some specialty dinings you went to and some highlights.
We did it all. So, part of getting on for a super low fare was, hey, how can we, which I'm sure Carnival loved, how can we visit some of the for pay outlets? And so we did. We did Bonsai twice, once for a little appetizer, once for a full meal. It's excellent. Not a huge on-land sushi guy. I don't really seek it out, maybe have it about a half a dozen times a year, but we enjoy it. Standouts there, it actually a cocktail called a geisha cocktail, really, really nice, sort of a snappy melon flavor. And you can get it, by the way, folks. You can just walk up and order it to go as well. So that was cool. And then the kakuni, which people just rave about. So kakuni is like a short rib, basically short rib slider. That was sort of a really powerful punch of a small bite that we loved. And the sashimi and the sushi, excellent as well. Carnival Steakhouse, always sort of been a real family favorite, on Carnival cruises, a couple decades ago. And even up through the magic in 2022, we would book the Steakhouse, and it was maybe not as special as it's always been, but still excellent. Better, again, not to make it a continued comparison, better than the Steakhouse, I think, on the Regal Princess. I had a delicious ribeye with a lot of awesome marbling. My girlfriend had an awesome surf and turf, which, by the way, is included at a lot of upsell steakhouses on cruise lines. Your surf and turf now is an additional supplemental fee, which is hard to believe. But at Fahrenheit 555, it is included. Yeah, just sort of an interesting service touch. We were standing at the host stand for, Doug, not even 2 minutes. Not a long period of time at all. And the chef actually came out from the open kitchen to greet us and apologize for us having to wait. And we were like, no, no big deal at all. And so he came out a couple of times during the meal to ask us how it was going, what we liked, what they could improve upon. Really special, delicious food there at the Steakhouse. We happened on a whim to book Cucina del Capitano. We didn't know whether we would do main dining or head up to Italian that night. That was good. I think the price point is one of the better things there. So you're out of there with tip and even a little bit of an extra gratuity for $60 a person, $60 total for two people. So it's about $23-24. Really solid chicken parm, a nice big heaping bowl of like an arugula salad with pine nuts, very sort of a light starter, which I definitely needed on day 3 when we went to Cucina. Girlfriend had the carbonara, which she enjoyed, and just super, super friendly and engaging service again there. And then to top it off, we had a special night out, Doug, at Chef's Table. Nice. I don't know if you've done that with Carnival or other lines. I'd never done it. It was a dream delayed, but finally realized on the Sunrise. Man, it start to finish, it's about a 3-hour, really, as I call it, a night out. Food delicious, great conversation with other cruise heads. Generally, folks who do that are have sailed a bit. Super engaging sous chef that sort of ran the whole thing. The synchronization of putting down plates and the sort of the narration of how to eat things and when to, pop off a plate topper and how to sort of let the aromas of the food sort of waft into the air. Really fun. Came with a galley tour. I have been to the galleys on cruise ships more times than I can count, but never during dinner service. So it was so cool to see the teamwork and the frantic nature of all the folks getting their plates to go out and to serve in the main dining room. We had a really cool sort of a baking demonstration with about, the Carnival warm chocolate melting cake that we were talking about by the head pastry chef. And, they take a photo of us all with the chefs and do a printout for us and give us our menus. So wine pairings and all, just really, really thoughtful. And I think a great way to experience Carnival if you're looking to get a little spendy and have a night out. So food was excellent. Again, from my vantage point of a lot of specialty dining, and the service, I would say, was excellent, bordering on special. They remembered you, they valued you. It certainly felt like the Carnival of old, and we loved it all.
Yeah, the Wagyu was really good in there.
Yes.
And also, it was cool too how the presentation, right? You were mentioning how they were presenting different dishes to you, taking the lids off or what have you, or using infusing some of the food with like a smoky flavor. That was kind of cool too, also for a cool visual effect there as well. And you it doesn't matter like how many times I've been in the kitchen on a cruise ship in the galley, I guess. It is always fun watching those guys do what they do.
And the last thing I'll say on the chef's table, it is certainly an elevated thing, but the food is very accessible. So if you're not a foodie, right? You're getting things that you know how to pronounce, and it's very accessible food experience. You might think, I'm not that type of eater. That might be a little too fancy or bougie for me, but it really wasn't. It was the perfect combination of sort of Carnival accessibility and relationality meets a little bit more of an elevated food experience.
Yeah, and like you said too, you'll definitely want to treat it as a night out and not just dining, because we clocked in at 6:15 and clocked out at 9:30. So we're talking 3.25 hours for us.
Yep.
And so it was definitely an event, and sometimes I'm like, when is the food going to stop coming? Because I just keep eating.
Right.
But you're right. It is an elevated experience and definitely worth it if you're able to do that. Any other places? We have the Guy's Burger joint. We have Blue Iguana Cantina. Any grab and goes?
Yeah, I guess just two more shout outs. Blue Iguana did it for breakfast, did it for lunch. My girlfriend lived in Tucson for 8 years and, is very familiar with, Mexican-American cuisine, and just really spoke highly of the level of fresh food there, the homemade tortillas. Blue Iguana is, I think, one of the best, along with Guys, certainly one of the best 1-2 punches of casual free food on any cruise line, anywhere. And we had Guys once, and it was very good, really solid. And then the last thing I'll say in the general food category, the drinks were excellent. Again, not a comparison podcast, but I think pound for pound better than the Regal Princess. Just better balance. Even the quality of ingredients on the included, on the drink menus at Blue Iguana, at Alchemy, they're just more compelling. They were just better than what I'd had on a cruise ship for a long time, and plenty of very friendly staff at the bars as well. So, save for 1 o'clock on a sea day at Blue Iguana, that was busy. But other than that, you generally weren't fighting to get a drink. It never really took more than, 3 to 5 minutes. So drink service all around, very good. And so was the food.
Let's talk about the entertainment on board this 5-night cruise on Sunrise. What did you think of it, and how did it stack up for y'all?
Again, functional, right? I think on a lot of, to an extent, Sunrise and, at least a solid handful of other Carnival ships are doing these, 3 to 6 night beach vacation things, where you might be a little bit burnt and spent and not wanting a full night out watching first-rate production shows. And if you go into it with that being the baseline, I think you'd be pleased, right? Like we did the Vintage Pop show, sort of a, musical review style, Prohibition vibe meets more contemporary music. It was fine. I thought it was solid. We did go to the Welcome Aboard show just because my girlfriend, again, hadn't cruised before. And that was, Dean-centric. Dean was our cruise director, Dean-centric energy, and Dean was fantastic. And so that was a solid take. The piano bar was excellent. Roger there was the pianist in the piano bar. It took people 2 nights to figure out that was a hot spot to be. The first night we were in there with maybe 14 other people, and then it got busier. Popped into the 90s party. I think Sunrise is one of a few ships that actually have a 90s party now, which it's crazy to think that that's becoming like an oldies night. But there was a 90s party that was sort of cool. Went to a couple trivias, a C-Day trivia for Harry Potter and Taylor Swift. So those are just crowd pleasers, right? You're going to have dozens and dozens of people there. So the entertainment was fine. It was engaging enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that one. So let's talk about the sea days then, or I guess sea day. We had one on this sailing. How were they for you as far as crowds and congestion?
I got a little annoyed. Again, so one of the things is there aren't a whole lot of inside public venues on the Sunrise. And we had our Nassau day, and we had, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we had our half moon as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were a little sunned out. So we weren't going to take this sea day to sit out at Serenity and get more sun. We sort of wanted to do more inside stuff. Yeah, it was pretty crowded. We did the best we could. We gambled for a few hours, just sort of bopped around to different machines. We found there were light to no crowds at the Skybox Sports Bar, just off of the casino, and a super friendly bartender, Putu Eddie, who was just a joy to hang with and talk to. That was when we did the Taylor Swift and the Harry Potter trivia. It was, the vibe was fun, Doug, but it was just loud. It was hectic. The activities folks were, trying to shush people through the microphone. And so I don't think I made it through all of Harry Potter trivia. I think I said, hey, Sarah, I'll catch up with you when it's done. Come find me in some quiet, dark corner. But, overall, it was fine. I forget what we did for lunch. And then that night we had Fahrenheit 555 for dinner. So, with such good island stops, the one sea day on a small ship was functional. It was fine.
Yeah, I went to Bonsai on the sea day, and it was one of the places I went because I couldn't find anything in the buffet. Like, it was just so crowded. There was dual lines running at Guy's Burger Joint. Blue Iguana Cantina had a long one. And, Carnival, that class of ship, both the Sunrise and the Sunshine, they have choke points right there as you're going from the pool, going into whether it be the port or starboard side of the Lido Marketplace, where there's a lot of, because of the lines of people going to these venues, you're kind of having to, I just keep saying shimmy, but turn sideways and stuff sometimes just to get from the pool into the Lido area. And I was just like, this ain't for me. I'm going to the Bonsai Sushi. And it was like $24 out the door. I had like the tuna and mango tartare, spicy tuna roll, and a bowl of ramen. And it was all solid and amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to go. Generally quieter there. Again, we're not talking about a 7-day cruise with 3 sea days, but if we were, I think that would just be a little too much for me.
What was the smoke situation like for you in the casino as far as in and around it?
Not bad. People were smoking, but not a ton. The only thing that bothered me, Carnival, I don't know on what other ships or what have you, have these aroma sort of diffusers that send these very distinct, nice smelling scents into the air. And the combo, interestingly, of the smoke and the diffuser didn't sit well with me. Usually one or the other on its own were fine, but the sort of the double trouble combo of those two things together was a little bit of a funky smell to me. But I did not find the casino smoke level to be overwhelming, and it didn't travel either way, forward or aft from there. Basically, there's a little bit of a walking area between the casino and where Bonsai starts, and I didn't smell smoke at Bonsai. I don't know if you did.
I didn't, but it was funny you mentioned that little that mister, because I was talking to my friend and I'm like, what is that sweet, sickening smell? And that's what it was that aroma mister. I was standing right underneath it. And yeah, I echo your sentiment on that one for sure. Let's talk about your seat, or not. Let's talk about your ports of call here. So the ship leaves Port Miami. You go to Nassau first. What was your day like in Nassau?
Usually, the last 6 times I've been there, I enjoy it as an on-ship day. But again, girlfriend's first cruise, so we wanted to go out and about. Again, we had this like 60% off or 50. It was a really good discount on shore excursions. So we actually did a really awesome walking tour of the major areas of sort of Parliament Square there. We saw the Queen's Steps. We saw actually the completed within the last year or so, United States Embassy right there in Nassau, the country's capital. And just a general, Doreen was her name, provided an awesome overview of the Bahamian people. the number of islands, the national bird, color, flower, and a little bit of the history of how the island came to be and what the folks there in Nassau are most proud of. It was 2 hours all in door to door, and it was excellent.
What do you think of the new port area there?
It was great. A little bit more, again, obviously up to date and a little bit less hectic, even though there's, I think, 2 more berths now. I mean, I think they can take up to maybe 6 or 7 ships. And it was good. I had been there before with it and had ventured out before. Good shopping. There's, I don't know if there's enough to do for a full day, where maybe you might go to Taino Bay or even Amber Cove or some others and say, I could probably do 6 hours here. You could probably fill 2 or 3 hours in the Nassau port area. And I know you were talking just on another of your podcasts about an included pool if you buy food. I didn't actually see that. I didn't venture down toward Junkanoo and British Colonial like I had in the past. But yeah, overall, pretty nice. They seem to be doing well there in Nassau overall.
Yeah, that pool is, if you're walking through the port area, because you can get off the ship, walk through that plaza and go straight and exit the gate, or like if you're going towards the Starbucks in port, you can hang a right there. And if you keep walking past that Starbucks, there's a giant amphitheater right there on the water. And then just past that, before the gate to let you out kind of towards what you're saying, like you're going to walk towards Junkanoo, there's that pool there, right? It's inside the port complex, but at the very end of it. So if you don't know what you're looking for, you're going to miss it because it is elevated with a big like brush and a fence around it as well. But I saw the sign. It was the first time I've ever seen it. So I was like, oh, that's a cool little addition there. So, all right. So then after Nassau, we had a sea day. And then after the sea day, it was Nassau. And then it was RelaxAway, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do a pickup and I'll say, all right, so after Nassau, there was the ship's Carnival's inaugural call at RelaxAway Half Moon Cay. What did you think of the new development?
I just, to take a step back, I did not book this itinerary knowing this would be the case. About 10 days before the sailing, my girlfriend turned to me and said, do you know John Heald? And I said, well, I know of him. And he said, apparently he's going to be on our sailing, and so are a bunch of other people. And so I actually, leading up to this, hadn't read a whole lot about what they were going to do, about what their plans were. In other words, there was plenty of fanfare a year ago and leading up to a year ago about Celebration Key, but I didn't get sort of a similar fanfare about the reopening here of RelaxAway, which has always been my favorite private island because it is just desolate in the best way. It's got some of the best swimming. You can leave your water shoes on the ship. The water is exceedingly clear. It's more of a cove situation, so waves aren't batting you down. So I was excited, but I thought it would basically be, Doug, a redevelopment of the Holland area that Carnival and others in the brand had been calling to. Because when I met you, I had mentioned that when we used to call in the old area, we would go all the way down to what was then, looking from the port area, your left, to very, very quiet area beyond all the loungers. It was shady with a bunch of natural trees. And upon getting off the new pier, I was a little bit turned around. I thought that what I was walking out onto was the same side that we used to tender to and call to. Mm-hmm. But then I realized that was all the way down on the other side of the island, and that the shady, quiet tree area had all been developed by Carnival. Now, a lot of people saying that's a bad thing. Others saying it's a great thing. What I do really appreciate is how they kept it pretty quiet and natural looking. It's just a beach day, know? And so compared to a lot of these other islands, which I have plenty of fun at, I really do think the word is remarkable. And so I hope they don't go the way of, revenue increasing areas with, for-pay water slides, et cetera, et cetera. But man, it's a stunner of an island. So those were my first impressions. We did an island walking tour, a natural sort of ecological walking tour, just because we figured we'd be sitting and eating all day. So we got our steps in there, and that met over by the older area of the island, and we booked a beautiful luxury daybed, which was actually, we were the third group there. So we were in the front row of the luxury daybeds right at, I think, the Guava stop, which is vaguely in the middle of the 6 or so, maybe 7 tram stops. Yeah, so I mean, those were my impressions. The swimming was as great as it's ever been. The food was outstanding. Tough to say whether it's just sort of first day excitement and, sort of an all hands situation. But the included lunch was really, really excellent. So it's cool talking to other cruisers who had been there previously and some others of Carnival's management who told me, I think there are days already on the books that will have 3 ships there, and it can actually do 4 if Holland calls with their original tender operations. So just a great day there. Beautiful weather too.
Yeah, I was asked how it is with Holland and Carnival, and correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but I was explaining it to people that if you picture a horseshoe, because it basically is a horseshoe beach, if you start at Holland and go all the way to Carnival, or vice versa. But if you were to put at the 12 o'clock position, or call it a due north position of the horseshoe, like put a dot there, Carnival owns one side and Holland America's property is the other side. And the tram number 6 stops right there. The tram stop 6 stops right there at that due north position. And that's kind of like where the horse farm is and all of that. Correct. So the tram won't go to the Holland America side. It stops right there at 6. There's a big roundabout and it starts going back to the ship, which if you walk it takes about 60 minutes or so from tram 6 all the way to the ship, but depending on your pace. But so it's not, from what I'm being told, guests can go back and forth, but it's the question of, do you want to? Because you're going to have to walk it. You're not going to be able to take a tram to go over and check out the Holland America side, but no one is going to be stopping you. This is as of June 2026 is what I was told.
Yeah, it didn't, that's my understanding as well. I would imagine if there isn't a Holland ship over there that you wouldn't have food services, that you wouldn't maybe even have lifeguards and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone would have waved their hands in the air in protest if you stepped foot on Holland America's sand over there. So the cool operations they have, I just, my aspiration for it is that it just stays chill.
And since this was your first time with Carnival in 4 years, this was also your inaugural call at Celebration Key. Give me some thoughts there. That was the following day.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was the one that the industry and I heard a ton about prior to its launch. So a little bit different. Obviously, folks know that it's, a part of a larger island, that's fully inhabited. And whereas, Half Moon is a smaller, sort of self-contained island. Tough weather. We had tough weather. I know that was a day, I think you were planning to fly off and leave the cruise, but the weather wasn't a total washout, but it was near it. We got this Pearl Cove Beach all-inclusive beach day, which was a blast, and the staff super accommodating, welcoming, awesome plush loungers. The beach there was a very good option. I had heard the beach at Pearl Cove was a bit on the rocky to maybe unpleasant side, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. Certainly not as bad as Princess Cays, which I was at just the week before. And then the huge Infinity Edge, super warm, tropical pool there with the swim-up bar. And then we had the seated lunch service as well that was included with the open bar. So there were 3 times throughout the day where they came over the intercom and blew the whistle and said, just because of inclement weather, we need you out of the water. And then there was one sort of swim at your own risk announcement. But they were super communicative with, weather systems and wanting to keep everybody having fun, but also safe. Food was excellent. Drinks were great. We did go into the large lagoon pool just because it's crazy to think that it's even a possibility. Mm-hmm. So that major pool area, I know there's 2 different sides to it. One's for families and the other's 13 up now. So we thought that was just a hoot to get into that. And, two ships in that day, both under 4,000 passengers on each. But, the pool, the major lagoon pool, it's just huge. You got to see it to experience it. And I'm glad that we hopped in there as well. We did use our island eats, so we ate a lot that day. We had our sort of an early lunch out at the food trucks, which was good. Overall, really good day at Celebration.
What did you think of the food? So, I mean, can you kind of explain, since you went to both places, is the food a sit-down dining room-like experience at the beach club, as far as like you're in a pavilion and table service, or is it more grab and go, like if you were outside of Pearl Beach?
At the adult beach club, it is table service, and they do, which I thought was interesting. As soon as you get to Pearl Cove, they ask you to go to the host stand to make a reservation for lunch. So, not hugely problematic in the sense that you wouldn't be waiting if you had a reservation, but maybe not a beachy sort of fun, flowy vibe to have to stand at a host stand to make a reservation for a beach lunch. But there, you can get a package that includes the 3-course lunch, or you can also make a reservation and just pay a la carte. The general Celebration key, you have loaded on your key card what's called Island Eats, and there's a number of different outlets where you basically use a kiosk. It's pretty easy. Select your meal, swipe your card, walk up to a food truck or to a vendor and grab your food. But you're only given one of those. There's some other sit-down options on the island that you do get a discount on an entree with your Island Eats if you choose not to use your Island Eats for a takeaway meal. So that's the general lay of the land of food there at Celebration Key.
Just to make sure I'm tracking with you, you mentioned that you had to make a reservation at the hostess stand for a beach lunch there in the Pearl Beach Club. So
right.
Is food not included, or it is included? You just have to make a reservation time to eat?
There's 3 passes. So you buy one pass that gets you access to Pearl Cove. Okay. Another pass gets you access to Pearl Cove with 10 drinks. And the third pass gets you access to Pearl Cove, 10 drinks, and a sit-down lunch. So we had the sit-down lunch package.
Okay.
So if you do get an entry pack, if you just sort of pay admission, you can go and buy a drink, and you can also make a reservation to sit down for lunch, but you just have to pay a la carte.
Okay, and I apologize if you explained that prior. It just wasn't clicking in my brain, but yep. I get it now. So, okay, very cool. When you were, the day at Celebration Key is when I debarked the ship there with Carnival Freedom in port, and I flew out around 1 p.m., and it was probably I fly a lot. I was white knuckle on the 20-minute flight from Freeport to Miami. We were getting thrown around like a rag doll flying in that cell of storms man. There. It was insane. I was like, maybe I should have stayed on the ship.
I should have done a rainy day on the island. Huh?
Right, yeah, exactly. But all right, so after Celebration Key, which sounded like a good day despite the inclement weather, you go back to Miami. It's time to debark. What was debarkation like?
Oh, it was a piece of cake. Yeah, I think there was one other ship, maybe 2 other ships in that day. I think it was one of the Virgin ships and another. We did I always do the self debark process.
So on a ship like that, because it is a shorter sailing, did you find when you were debarking, did a lot of people have passports, or was it more the birth certificate line, or did it not matter? And because isn't it with the facial recognition, it's only for passports?
Right. So facial recognition, I believe, is for passports only. I don't know if that extends to passport cards. I would imagine it does for, sailings that go to Canada, Bermuda, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Not sure, though. Yes, but you did have more of the birth certificate, other forms of identification. The other thing to note, both on Princess and Carnival, is they are pretty cautious if you're bringing on an individual who's a minor, whose last name does not match yours. Cruise lines have been really, I think, appropriately intense about this over the last few years. So they do, I don't know all the details, but they require a little bit more documentation. If you're a grandfather bringing on, a grandson or whatever, a family friend, et cetera. So that sometimes creates a little bit more, especially in the embarkation process. But debark overall was very simple.
That's actually really good to see with the amount of trafficking these days that they're taking those extra steps.
I think it's great. Yeah.
Do you have any first-time tips? You make your return back to Carnival. You're doing the Carnival Sunrise. So if someone was sailing on Carnival Sunrise or Carnival Sunshine, they're identical. Do you have any first-time tips for them?
Yeah, just a few. So first of all, think about your alternate breakfast and lunch options outside of the buffet area, including those pop-up free fresh options like the bagels at sea, especially when that rolls out fleet-wide. But don't think you're only beholden to the buffet on those early morning sea days or otherwise. Try other things. I would say bring earplugs, especially if this class on the Sunshine as well has those vents. So even people not being totally ridiculous and inappropriate, even just generally loud, could wake a light sleeper. So bring some earplugs. Interestingly enough, keep in mind that the Tides pool bar. So if you want a late night drink, it's open till midnight. Most pool bars on cruise lines close closer to 8 or 9, but the Tides pool bar aft is open till midnight. That's sort of fun. You don't need to overplan this ship, right? It's still running these sort of beachy vibe vacations. You don't need to arrive to shows any more than 5 to 10 minutes early. You don't need to feel like you need to make your dining reservations, even for specialty dining, as soon as they become open. So don't fret. It's not like a brand new ship where you have 800 seats for 4,000 people to watch a show. You really don't need to overplan the Sunrise. And I would say, and I was talking to a couple Carnival folks about this, the Celebration Key, Half Moon, is like a pretty unique 1-2 punch in the industry. You could certainly do Celebrity to their private, Royal to their private island, and then to the Royal Beach Club in Nassau. But the 1-2 punch of Celebration Key and Half Moon is pretty much one of one in the industry. So they make for really good, relaxing, simple itineraries. And if you're looking for an awesome beach vacation, pop on the Sunrise.
You mentioned this was a casino offer, but I am curious because you did do some add-ons. Was the value there for what you paid?
Totally. I think the value, line by line, so like each specialty dining was worth it based on, the bill at the end or what we had already paid. I think we did better than what we paid overall, all in, for the value of the, crew appreciation, their gratuities, food, the drink, the experience, entertainment. Great value.
If you could give any feedback to Carnival on something they could improve on Carnival Sunrise, what would that be?
Maybe something like Princess did basically a welcome to Princess or welcome to cruising session. So if you have a quarter of your, shipmates who are new to Carnival or who are new to cruising, maybe the welcome aboard show is definitely geared more toward first timers about, why it's a great industry, a great way to vacation, and why Carnival's different. That might be fun and informative.
Well, looking back, this was your girlfriend's first cruise. What's the biggest highlight for y'all?
To be honest, just sounds a little vague, but doing the cruise, it's getting to meet the crew, seeing how hospitable and gregarious and just generally decent they were, and how genuinely interested they were. And she and I was awesome. And to have everything, under one umbrella. You could see a show, play in the casino a bit, have a first-rate meal, and to experience that with her was really cool. Also on the line where I first got to cruising, having spent some time on other cruise lines that I love as well. But to sort of introduce her to cruising in the way that I was introduced to it, in pretty classic Carnival style all the way around, with some awesome ports and the opening of Half Moon. Smiles all the way around.
And in closing here, your final thoughts of Carnival Sunrise.
It is what it is. And I mean that in the most endearing way, right? If you're looking for a multi-night, but not a week, cruise beach vacation, which with some awesome, Carnival Corp, destinations to put your feet in the sand and to enjoy a good drink, with super friendly crew and decent enough food, with some really intriguing upcharge options for specialty dining. This would be the type of cruise that I think I'd do, if I could, every year, every other year, just to get that beach itch in, to go to places that I had been before, and to be with a crew who I know was was caring and took a lot of pride in their work. It was a really nice cruise we were on.
We've been talking with Corey about his 5-night sailing from Miami to RelaxAway at Half Moon Cay and Celebration Key on Carnival Sunrise. Corey, it was nice meeting you, my friend, and thanks for giving us some time this morning.
Doug, my pleasure, and happy sails.
The world is constantly changing. Your place for news is still the same. Online and on demand at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,